Every touchdown brings you closer to a payout with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code SPOTIFY to get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you place your first bet of $5 or more. In partnership with DraftKings. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. Fees may apply in Illinois. 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contrast. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan. $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. Welcome in, everybody, to this edition of the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation news from across the nation for the week of September 1st, 2025. Oh, sweet September, here we are. This week brought to you by Bass Pro Shops, Richard Childress Racing, and Ducks Unlimited. Thank you all for your support. Before we get into our lead story and other stories, I got to remind you guys, we have a really great raffle going on to support conservation. It's the Pop for Conservation raffle. All sorts of items to be had, vehicle, hunts, hunting, fishing equipment. You can get in on all of it at popforconservation.com. P-O-P, the number 4, conservation.com, popforconservation.com. Go there, check out all the stuff. Limited tickets available. So get yours now while they last. Let's get to the headlines. Fish and Wildlife Service expands hunting and fishing opportunities across 11 states. Full inclusion of crossbows in archery season now law in New York. The Sportsman's Paradise continues to produce both regulatory and legislative successes. Washington's Wolf Advisory Group tackles rising wolf livestock conflicts. The Gulf Council advances angler priorities, and we wrap things up in Michigan with the votes on returning to a year-round coyote season. All right, let's get into our lead story. This from Taylor Schmitz. Fish and Wildlife Service expands hunting and fishing opportunities across 11 states. Last week, Fish and Wildlife Service announced expansion of 42 new hunting and fishing opportunities across more than 87,000 acres across the refuge system in the fish hatchery system. This effort by FWS is representative of a commitment to sportsmen and women and marks an important step to bolster our nation's sporting traditions. CSF thanks Fish and Wildlife Service for their commitment to improving access for hunting and fishing across our public lands. On August 27th, the service announced the expansion of new hunting and fishing opportunities across the National Wildlife Refuge System and the National Fish Hatchery System, a decision that was welcome news for CSF. The final rule announced last week opens or expands hunting and fishing across 16 different units within the National Wildlife Refuge System and 1 unit of the National Fish Hatchery System. Specifically, these expanded opportunities will occur within the following states: Alabama, California, Idaho, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Montana, North Carolina, Texas, and Washington. Notably, the rule includes the opening of hunting at the Southern Maryland Woodlands National Wildlife Refuge System, Grasslands Wildlife Management Area, and brand new sport fishing opportunities at the North Attleboro National Fish Hatchery. Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation thanks the Fish and Wildlife Service for the commitment to sportsmen and women by expanding access to public lands that serve as a critical recreational areas for America's sportsmen and women. Well, that's great news. We'll take it. More access available. Interesting, some of these states. Some of them are close to me. I'll have to check some of that out and let you guys know what I find out. But yeah, that's good news. And we thank Taylor for his reporting. Some more good news out of New York State. Full inclusion of crossbows in archery season now the law in New York State. This is a long time coming. This has been a priority in New York with the New York Sportsmen's Advisory Council, NISAC, certainly as well as CSF. And for this to get across the finish line this year was a pretty big deal. All the infighting aside, this is open access for more people, more opportunity, and well, let's get into it. This reporting from Christian Ragosta, who is the assistant manager in New York. On Tuesday, August 26th, the New York Assembly Bill 8330 and Senate Bill 6360 were signed into law, which has normalized crossbows. Effective immediately, crossbows are permitted during the full archery season, and onerous size requirements and width and maximum peak draw weight are removed from New York statute. Hunters can now use crossbows with the minimum peak draw weight of 100 pounds anytime, anywhere a vertical bow is allowed for harvesting big game. CSF has been in the fight advocating for crossbow inclusion for over 15 years. CSF worked directly with legislators in support of AB 8330 and SB 6360. Legislation to normalize crossbows and include them in the full archery season has been attempted for over 2 decades. Crossbows were first permitted in 2014 by adding compromise language into New York executive budget to authorize their use for only 2 weeks of the archery season or during the muzzleloader season, both requiring the muzzleloader privilege stamp. This victory was a result of CSF working with the New York Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus and the New York Sportsmen's Advisory Council, NISAC. As stated here earlier, CSF has been on the front lines for 15 years. Since the original language that we referenced from 2014, over a decade and a half, CSF has been working with lawmakers, NISAC, and other sportsmen's organizations and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to normalize crossbows. This year's success could not have been achieved without the help of both the Senate and Assembly Committees of Environmental Conservation. With a resounding bipartisan vote of support in both chambers, the New York legislature, only 4 nay votes in both chambers combined, and the signature from the governor, New York has now been added to the growing list of states that permit unrestricted use of crossbows during the archery season. When crossbows were first approved in New York, they were only permitted for hunting during the muzzleloader season and the last 2 weeks of the early bow hunting season and had stringent size requirements. Since then, crossbow technology has accelerated quickly, and the dated language in the statute made many modern-day crossbows illegal for hunting in New York. Now that the governor has signed that legislation, these requirements have been removed, allowing the use of newly engineered and constructed modern crossbows. By allowing more opportunities for use and by removing the dated size requirements of crossbows, hunters will be contributing more to the American system of conservation funding when buying new archery equipment. The state agency will benefit from the additional wildlife management tool and more conservation funding through the ASCF. Although the law did not make it in time for publication in this year's Hunting and Trapping Regulations Guide, the agency plans on updates to their website to share the appropriate new regulations for crossbow use. For licensing purposes, crossbow hunters will be required to purchase a bow hunting privilege. Therefore, a bow hunter education course will be required before obtaining the bow hunting privilege. In-person or online courses are approved by the state agency. Also, Westchester, Suffolk, and Nassau counties must conform to a 500-foot residential buffer zone with an option for other counties to opt into this provision. CSF would like to thank our leadership in the New York State Legislative Sportsman's Caucus, Senator Hinchy, Senator Griffo, and Assemblyman Smullen, as well as the two sponsors of the legislation, Senator Harkman and New York Legislative Sportsman's Caucus member Assemblywoman Warner. CSF would also like to acknowledge the dedicated members of NYSEC who have been advocating alongside CSF for this important change since the council was formed by CSF in 2012. CSF thanks Governor Hochul for signing this important legislation into law to make crossbows available for the full archery season this fall. Yeah, great. And a couple takeaways here. First of all, and I don't think it's any secret, New York State and Albany and the governor can be a point of contention. Excuse me. Maybe not as friendly to our community. She didn't have to sign it. She could have ignored it and it would have become law by itself. But the fact that she signed it, I think that's really great. I think, tip of the cap to the governor there in New York for putting her signature on that bill and making it law and not just letting it, by default become law. I think that's worthy of a tip of the cap there and acknowledgement. And then, getting back into some of the nitty gritty here, obviously our reporting is 99.99999% spot on. Every once in a while, a little thing here, but it's quickly remedied. Despite that accurate track record, please, we're not the authority. The state agency is. So you're hearing this report, you're getting this information from Christian. You can count on it, but you can really count on your information from the agency. If New York law enforcement conservation officer stops you and you say you got your information from CSF, that's not going to bode well. Do check your regs. Make sure you're up to date on all of it. Know what that means. And go afield prepared and knowing what the regulations are. And also the updating of the language or the removal of the dated language from the statute. And tremendously important. I mean, you go back in time, the technology has come along so far with these things, these platforms. It's arguable that today's technology is more efficient, more lethal, more ethical. Not saying that, your crossbows from 25, 30 years ago are not. But they're bigger, they're clunkier. The technology is different. You've come along, 20 plus years. There's a lot of great platforms out in the market. And again, as the article said, it contributes directly to the conservation funding mechanism in Pittman Robinson through the archery accoutrement sales. So a win all around, and really happy to see this one get over the finish line this year. So round of applause for all involved, and certainly a backslap for Christian there in New York, really working well with in-state partners and championing the New York Legislative Sportsman's Caucus and those members, those co-chairs, for really getting after this one. Up next, the Sportsman's Paradise continues to produce both regulatory and legislative successes. This is from Mark Lance, our assistant manager in the Southeast. Heading to Louisiana, the Sportsman's Paradise, and it has seen several different pieces of legislation and regulations cross the finish line so far in 2025. From committing funding to revitalize one of the most historic waterfowl hunting areas in the state, to incentivizing private landowners to enhance wildlife habitat, expanding black bear hunting opportunities, modernizing primitive firearm definitions, and more, there were no shortage of wins to be had for Louisiana sportsmen and women. Stop right there. Louisiana is doing a bang up job. It's been really fun to report throughout the last year of the session on all the great stuff. They're doing it right. You know, the black bear thing we've covered at length, and well, heck, let's revisit some of it and stack the wins like cordwood here. CSF led the effort to work with the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries and its commission to successfully amend what constitutes a legal firearm during primitive firearm seasons in the proposed hunting regulations for the 2025 through 2027 seasons, paving the way for new technology such as the fire stick to be a legal method take during the primitive weapons season. During the legislative session, CSF and partners also supported Louisiana Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus member Representative Jacob Landry's House Bill 564, which established the Louisiana Conservation Incentive Program. CSF, along with numerous other partners, supported increased funding to the White Lake Wetlands Conservation Area, which has long been considered one of the most important areas in North America for wintering waterfowl and an important destination for sportsmen and women, but has needed increasing funding for infrastructure needs. Lastly, in another win for sportsmen, Louisiana expanded black bear season and its tags from 11 to 26 this year. As previously reported, reestablishing the Louisiana black bear season has been a priority for CSF, and we have been very excited to see the success that the state has seen since reinstating the season last year, which was really cool to report on since we were right there in Baton Rouge and had that access. It was really well timed. So let's get into some more of this here. We've talked about the muzzle loading technology as a priority policy for us here at CSF. And we'll hit on it again. The advancements in muzzle loading technology allow hunters to utilize a safer and more reliable alternative to traditional black powder muzzle loading while maintaining that the projectiles must still be loaded down the barrel, increasing access through updated primitive firearm definitions, as well as investing in private lands conservation to benefit resources held in public trust are critical for hunters and anglers in the state. The Conservation Incentive Program, which is a voluntary program that provides incentives to private landowners in exchange for conservation actions on their property. Opportunities to fund projects through this program would benefit wildlife through forest stand improvement, putting more water on agricultural landscape to improve suitability for waterfowl and wetland bird species, improving wetlands, prescribed fire implementation, and increasing feral hog management efforts. The two primary projects that are in need of funding are the Northern White Lake Shoreline Stabilization Project and the Gulf Intracoastal Waterway Shoreline Stabilization Project. These two projects would repair over 40 miles of shoreline that protect vital freshwater marshes from flooding events that could erode them into the lake. Flooding would also affect rice fields and other private property where habitat is managed for waterfowl and other wading shorebirds if these necessary repairs are not completed soon. More than $30 million was secured for these projects through the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority Master Plan, thanks to the leadership of Governor Sportsman's Caucus member Jeff Landry. Lastly, building upon the success of last year's black bear hunt, the agency and its commission expanded bear hunting opportunities to include 15 additional tags. These tags will be distributed across bear management areas 1, 2, and 4, a decision supported by the rebounded Louisiana black bear population. CSF appreciates the strong relationships among our sporting conservation partners in Louisiana and will continue to advocate on behalf of the sportsman's community to carry this pro-sportsman momentum in the back half of the 2025 session and beyond. Fantastic. Let's head over to the West Coast here. This from Marie Newmiller. Washington's Wolf Advisory Group tackles rising wolf livestock conflicts. Washington's wolf population is growing, creating complex management challenges that impact sportsmen, ranchers, and public alike. CSF holds a seat on the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife's Wolf Advisory Group, ensuring that the sportsman voice helps shape wolf management policies that balance predator recovery with healthy prey populations and livestock protections. The advisory group, a diverse citizen panel, advises the agency wolf management, including the Wolf Livestock Interaction Protocol, which was tested in August 2025 when the Sherman pack met criteria for lethal removal. Wolf management in Washington is complicated by dual federal and state listing statutes, requiring adaptive strategies as populations expand. CSF advocates for sportsman priorities such as maintaining robust game populations in the advisory group discussions. Washington's wolf management is at a critical juncture as populations grow and disperse, prompting ongoing reviews of state listing statutes and long-term statutes. The advisory group established by the state agency brings together ranchers, hunters, environmentalists, and other stakeholders to address these challenges collaboratively. CSF's active role ensures sportsmen perspectives, particularly in the need to balance wolf recovery with healthy ungulate populations, are a vital component to these discussions. A key tool in managing wolf livestock conflicts is the department's Wolf Livestock Interaction Protocol, developed with the advisory group input in 2017 and revised in 2020. The protocol outlines criteria for the lethal removal in the state's eastern third, where wolves are federally delisted but remain state listed. Removal is considered if a pack is confirmed responsible for 3 livestock depredations in 30 days or 4 in 10 months. This approach aims to disrupt pack behavior and prevent habituation on livestock as prey. In August of this year, the protocol was put to the test when the Sherman Wolf Pack in northeastern Washington met the lethal removal threshold. During the advisory group's quarterly meeting in Clarkson on August 27th of 2025, the state agency announced the removal of a non-breeding female from the pack, intensifying discussions among attendees. The meeting, attended by a diverse stakeholders group, focused on balancing wolf conservation with the economic realities of livestock producers and the interests of hunters relying on healthy ungulate populations. Despite some heated debates, the advisory group identified key priorities for the next 2-year cycle, including the following: adapting to state budget cuts for conflict management mitigation programs, refining protocol implementations for the 26 grazing season, enhancing public outreach to foster transparency and community engagement, planning for post-delisting management as wolf populations grow and disperse across the state. As Washington's wolves continue to expand, CSF remains committed to ensuring sportsmen's voices are heard and shaping adaptive, science-based management plans that support both wildlife conservation and the state's hunting heritage. Yeah, I'm sure that was put politely by Marie, heated debates. Nothing is more of a lightning rod than charismatic predators, specifically wolves. And, well, those who've been around for a second understand how that goes. There are some folks who just aren't indifferent or don't care to the damage they can inflict, not only on ranchers, but natural prey species. And then also, in certain parts of the country, these predators are a a public health menace, even going as far as killing people. So, it's never an easy conversation, but the science-based arguments and policies need to rule the day here. And you can't have a bunch of packs of wolves just running around creating havoc. All right, let's wrap this up. Two more stories here to go. This from Chris Horton. The Gulf Council advances angler priorities. The Gulf Council approved CSF-supported 10.21% allocation for the Deepwater Grouper Complex for the recreational sector. The requirement to have a venting tool or descending device rigged and ready will soon expire, but at the urging of CSF, Coastal Conservation Association, American Sport Fishing Association, and others in the recreational community, the council plans to make the requirement permanent. Last week, the Gulf Council took a major step in recognizing the growing popularity of recreational fishing for deep water grouper species by voting to establish a recreational quota for the first time. CSF applauds the decision and has been urging the council to recognize the growing popularity of recreational bottom fishing in deep water. Deepwater Grouper Complex is comprised of Warsaw grouper, snowy grouper, yellow edge grouper, and speckled hind, and has historically been managed with a single commercial annual catch limit for the complex. Until now, the recreational sector had been fishing on an unspecified allocation, which was essentially a 3.5% buffer between the commercial quota allocation and the annual catch limit. Like many recreational fisheries, the Federal Recreational Data Collection Program, known as MRIP, has been struggling to provide any reliable estimates for recreational effort on the complex. However, deep water recreational fishing has been occurring for over a decade, and as new technology allow recreational anglers to more efficiently access these fisheries, the recreational component of the fishery will only continue to grow. The popularity of these fisheries among recreational anglers warranted the 10.21% allocation of the ACL that the council approved for the sector. Additionally, CSF and others in the recreational community strongly urge the council to permanently implement the requirements of the Descend Act, which is set to expire January 26. Anglers fishing for reef fish in the Gulf are currently required to have venting tool or descending device rigged and ready, providing a mechanism for anglers to send fish back to the depths from which they are caught and ensuring they can be caught another day. While the lack of addressing the looming expiration of this requirement through the normal council process, as Congress intended with the sunset, has been frustrating for the recreational community, the council voted to bring an abbreviated framework amendment to permanently implement the requirement to the November meeting. CSF attended last week's meeting where we advocated these actions, among others. CSF is committed to ensuring that we have appropriate access to our fisheries and that our community can reduce discard mortality of fish caught from the deep. Wrapping things up in Michigan, this from Bob Matthews. The NRC votes on returning to year-round coyote season. This won't attract any attention. Let's get into it. Acknowledging that hunting is the preferred wildlife management tool, and it is the most effective, cost-efficient, and socially acceptable method of maintaining healthy wildlife populations, it is imperative that policies are guided by science-based principles and that hunters are provided opportunities to be active participants in conservation. In April, CSF expressed support for the WCO Amendment Number 4, which would return Michigan to a year-round coyote hunting state. The Michigan National Resources Commission tabled the proposal and picked up the topic once again during the August meeting. Although the WCO Amendment Number 4 was not formally adopted, the commissioners instead unanimously committed to adopting it before coyote season is scheduled in 2026. This proposal came just a year after the NRC voted to create a quiet period during the early months of summer because of emotional pressure rather than scientific support. However, during its August meeting, the NRC unanimously voted for a resolution that does not yet reinstate the season, but instead commits to doing so before April 2026. Coyote populations exploding in recent decades. There has been increased likelihood for human wildlife conflict, livestock depredation, and impact to prey species, including small game and white-tailed deer. The resolution stated the Michigan Natural Resource Commission is committed to enacting a regulation for Michigan citizens to take coyotes year-round on public and private land through a combination of hunting, trapping, and lethal take of nuisance and damaging animals, and that the Michigan Natural Resource Commission is committed to acting on this matter before the regular fur bearer regulation cycle in the Wildlife Conservation Order in 2026. CSF supports legislation and regulations that rely on science-based fish and wildlife management. Although there is no formal change in the season yet, CSF will remain engaged as the NRC revisits the issue. Thank Bob for his reporting there in Michigan. Yeah, we get the same arguments over here, and it isn't anything special to Michigan, and the same emotional rhetoric that happens over there happens in the Northeast, happens in the Northwest, and hell, even the Southwest in recent years, right? So again, going back to the previous story, charismatic predators, whatever the predator du jour is in your state, in your community, a lot of the, places east of the Rockies, um, bears and coyotes pretty much get the share of the attention. Cats in different spaces, but smaller cats. But um, you get these proposals to shut down year-long open seasons on a predator species like coyotes that are very good at breeding, very good at creating large populations, and operating in a pack mentality. Let the science dictate the policy, and often in many of our states, you have these open seasons for a reason, and that should be listened to. So the emotional rhetoric around pup rearing and the fur is not good, all this, um, you got to come back to the basics here. The managers at the state agency level agree, and their boards or commissions agree to these seasons and these open seasons for a reason. Um, that's got to be the standard. And getting back to these things, and yeah, allowing the professionals to be your professionals. All right, that's our show this week. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your support, following, subscribing, hitting 5 stars. All of it helps. It all means something, and as does your ears tuning in every week. Feature podcast episode drops tomorrow, September 4th. We're going to welcome in members from our Executive Council of NASC, the National Assembly of Sportsmen's Caucuses. We were just with them, as I said in last week's episode. We were on location with our EC members at the mid-year get together where a lot of planning is done for the year. We're looking forward to NASC talking about it. So we're going to welcome Representative Scott Bounds of Mississippi, Representative Jesse Chisholm of the state of Tennessee, both states co-hosting this year. So we're going to give you a little taste, flavor, a little look towards December from those two executive council members, and also touch on, why NASC is so important. We go over these stories every week, and so often we're thanking the co-chairs of these legislative sportsmen's caucuses. You hear right from them why it's important for them to run, to be on the executive council, and their leadership and what that does, and working with the caucuses throughout all 50 states. So we'll look forward to that tomorrow. And we'll come back to this edition next Wednesday. So Might be a delay in that one. We're going to do our best to get it out, but I'm going on the road again. And this time, get to hang out with our great partners with Fur Takers of America at the Trapping College. Very intensive curriculum, and looking forward to getting on the ground with professionals and folks coming from all over the country to attend this very intensive educational opportunity, and look forward to future reporting on it. So again, all that to say, not that I'm doing a super cool thing next week, but this program may be delayed in getting out just because of the intensive nature of this curriculum and my ability to get behind a microphone. But nevertheless, you can always rely on the EPUB. And again, subscribing to the EPUB, all those stories we just brought you all have in-article links, so you can deep dive. You can see the bills, you can see the regulations. All of it's there for you to do your own homework, do more research, and be better informed on the subject we're bringing to you here every Monday or Tuesday, like we did this week when you have a Monday holiday. All right, so congressionalsportsman.org. Sign up for the EPUB there. You'll see the banner at the top is a congressionalsportsman.org pop for conservation. Get it on the raffle. It's going to support our mission. It does a lot of good, gives you some chances, some really cool prizes. Get your tickets there, popforconservation.com, POP, the number 4, conservation.com. Until next week, remember, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. We'll see you next Wednesday. So long.
Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.